Jason Corbett was part of a large Irish family, growing up in Limerick, Ireland, with his twin brother Wayne and his older sister Tracy. The Corbett household was always filled with laughter, mischief, and love. Jason, known for his outgoing and boisterous nature, was the loud twin, often heard before he was seen. At 27, Jason married his first wife, Margaret, Mags Fitzpatrick. The couple was overjoyed when they welcomed their first child, Jack, into the world. 2 years later, they welcomed their second child, Sara, and completed the family they had always dreamed of. With their prince and princess finally arriving, Jason and Mags were overjoyed and felt their family was complete. They were excited for the future and cherished every moment with their young children. However, their happiness was short-lived when tragedy struck in 2006. Mags, a long-time asthmatic, suffered a bad attack during the night. In a panic, Jason called emergency services, and an ambulance rushed her to the hospital. Tragically, Mags passed away in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Jason, who was 30 years old at the time, was devastated by the loss of his wife. His 2 young children, Jack and Sara, were only 2 and 12 weeks old. It was an incredibly challenging time for him as he faced the daunting task of raising his children on his own. Despite the overwhelming grief, Jason knew that he had to pick up the pieces and continue moving forward for the sake of his children. 1 year after Mags' death, Jason needed help with his children, Jack and Sara. He decided to seek help through an au pair and posted an advertisement on the internet. Molly Martins, a young nanny from Knoxville, Tennessee, caught his attention. Having grown up babysitting, she harbored a deep passion for working with children. Molly had briefly studied at university but felt a strong desire for a new chapter in her life. She was looking for an adventure and believed working as an au pair in Ireland would provide just that. In March 2008, Molly arrived in Limerick, ready to start her new adventure. From the moment she met Jack and Sara, she connected with them effortlessly. Her love for children was evident, and Jason couldn't help but notice how at ease his children seemed to be around her. As time passed, the relationship between Jason and Molly evolved from a professional one into something more personal. Their love for each other grew, and those who were close to Jason couldn't help but notice how happy the couple seemed. The sadness that once consumed Jason had been replaced with a new joy. Molly's presence in Limerick had brought new life into Jason's world. After 2 years together, Jason and Molly began discussing their future. On Valentine's Day 2010, Jason proposed to Molly at one of their favorite restaurants in Limerick. The couple was happy and celebrated their engagement with friends and family with a champagne toast. Molly, overjoyed to be engaged to Jason, wholeheartedly embraced the role of his future wife. She treated Jack and Sara as if they were her own. Molly and Jason had been dating for several years when the couple decided to tie the knot. Their families supported their relationship and were thrilled when the couple got engaged. Yet, everything changed after Jason's loved ones arrived in America for his and Molly's wedding. The Molly that they had known in Limerick seemed to have changed. She was acting weird, controlling, and angry, and did not seem like the blushing, happy bride they had expected. Throughout the wedding weekend, Molly barely left her room and did not socialize with anyone. This behavior puzzled Jason's family, as they had always been under the impression that Molly and Jason were deeply in love. One day, one of the bridesmaids approached Jason's family and revealed that Molly had confided in her that Molly had once been close friends with Mags, Jason's deceased wife, before Mags died from cancer. This information shocked Tracy, Jason's sister. Mags had not died from cancer as Molly had claimed. She had passed away from an asthma attack. Furthermore, Molly absolutely did not know Mags. Tracy, who had been friends with Molly for years, began to question if her brother should marry her. As the weekend progressed, Molly's behavior continued to deteriorate. She seemed distant and disinterested in the wedding preparations. Jason's family was concerned. They tried to understand why Molly had lied about knowing Mags. Several of Jason's friends felt the same way Tracy did and questioned whether Jason should marry Molly. One of them, a groomsman at his wedding, told Jason it was not too late to walk away from this and return to Ireland. However, Jason said he couldn't. He had made a commitment to Molly, and he was going to follow through with it. As the wedding day arrived, tensions ran high. Jason's family watched from afar as Molly stood by his side. They hoped for the best, but couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The wedding ceremony passed without incident, but the aftermath left more questions than answers. Jason's family remained concerned about their future and pondered whether Molly was truly the right person for Jason. After Molly and Jason married, they settled with Jack and Sara in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. From the outside looking in, the Corbett family appeared to be the ideal blended family. Molly seamlessly fit in with Jason and his children, or so it seemed. According to Tracy, Jason expressed the desire to return to Ireland, but understood the challenges of leaving Molly. Jason was homesick and missed rugby, which he was a huge fan of. Rugby is a sport deeply rooted in Irish culture, and being away from it made Jason long for his homeland even more. He missed the feeling of being part of the rugby community, and the camaraderie that came with it. Jason was also a huge fan of Irish culture in general. He loved the traditions, music, and language unique to Ireland. The vibrant atmosphere and the warmth of the Irish people left a lasting impression on Jason, and he cherished the memories he had from his time there. Although Jason liked his neighbors in Winston-Salem and his neighborhood, it wasn't Ireland. Winston-Salem, North Carolina was the place it took him after he left Ireland, but it didn't have the same connection to him. Jason missed his familiarity and sense of belonging in his hometown in Ireland. Jason always intended to return to his homeland with his children. He deeply loved his country and wanted it to be a part of his children's lives. It was important for Jason to raise his children as teenagers in Ireland. Molly had been the only mother that Jack and Sara had ever known, and Jason believed that Molly loved his children. However, he also clarified that he did not want Molly to adopt Jack and Sara. Jason expressed concerns about Molly's erratic behavior and the lies she told about his first wife. In 2015, the tension in the relationship between Molly and Jason reached its peak on August 2nd, 2015. At around 2 a.m., Tom Martins, Molly's father and a 30-year veteran of the FBI, made a call to 911. In his call, he stated that his daughter Molly and her husband Jason were involved in a physical altercation. Tom further said that he had intervened and believed Jason was in bad shape. When the dispatcher questioned Tom regarding what he meant by bad shape, Tom confessed that he feared he may have killed Jason. The dispatcher immediately dispatched police officers and an ambulance to the Corbett household, where they arrived to find Jason dead in the bedroom. Both Molly and her father, covered in blood, were at the scene. Molly and Tom were taken to the police department, where detectives interviewed them about what happened. Tom explained to the detectives that he was staying at his daughter Molly's home. He stated that before he went to bed, he noticed his son-in-law Jason was drunk. Tom heard a commotion coming from their second story and decided to investigate. According to Tom, he grabbed a metal Little League baseball bat that he had purchased for his grandson Jack as a gift and headed upstairs to find out what was going on. When he arrived at Molly and Jason's bedroom, he found Jason with his hands wrapped around Molly's throat, squeezing tightly. Tom told the detective that he had told Jason, "Let her go," but Jason had not. He claimed Jason told him, "I'm gonna kill her." At that moment, Tom said he felt his parental instinct kick in and decided to intervene. He raised the baseball bat and hit Jason with it. Tom explained that Jason was bigger than him and that Jason was able to grab the bat. He stated that Jason pushed him to the ground so hard that his glasses flew off. Tom told the detectives that he was terrified that Jason was going to kill him and his daughter Molly. When he regained control of the baseball bat, he said he hit Jason repeatedly until Jason went down. During the interview, Tom described Jason as crazy. He also acted jovial with the detectives, nonchalantly answering questions as if being interviewed for the killing of his son-in-law was no big deal. Meanwhile, in a separate interview room, detectives also questioned Molly. Her story matched her father's, stating that she picked up a paving stone that was sitting on her nightstand and hit Jason as he was attacking her father. The detective asked why there was a paving stone in Molly's bedroom. She replied that she and the children were planning to repaint the bricks and plant flowers around the mailbox. At the police department, Molly and Tom's bodies were photographed, and they were released. Tracy was stunned when she received the news of her brother's death. The news came as an even greater shock when she discovered that he was killed by his wife, Molly, and father-in-law, Tom, in an alleged act of self-defense. However, Tracy knew this was impossible. Her brother Jason would never harm anyone. Jason was a kind-hearted and gentle individual. Determined to uncover the truth, Tracy reached out to Molly, her brother's wife, hoping to talk to her niece and nephew. However, Molly ignored her calls and messages, leaving Tracy feeling even more desperate. She feared for the safety of her niece and nephew, Jack and Sara, and believed that Molly had intentionally killed Jason. Knowing that Jason had named her as the legal guardian of Jack and Sara in the event of his death, Tracy made the difficult decision to fly from Ireland to North Carolina. She filed a petition to gain custody of her niece and nephew, knowing that Molly had also filed for custody. In the days following Jason's death, Molly made allegations of abuse in their relationship. A friend of Molly's spoke to 48 Hours and claimed that she had seen Jason control Molly, calling her names and engaging in abusive behavior. Molly had also confided in the friend, stating that Jason had forced her into having intercourse against her will. However, Molly never reported any abuse to the police, and Tracy, Jason's sister, didn't think any of it was true. As the case unfolded, Tracy's fears intensified. She was convinced that Jason's death was no accident, and that Molly posed a threat to Jack and Sara. With the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, Tracy was determined to protect her brother's children and fight for their right to a safe and nurturing future. 4 days after Jason passed away, Jack and Sara were interviewed by a social worker regarding their account of what happened the night Jason passed away. In their respective statements, both Jack and Sara corroborated Molly's claim that Jason was abusive. Jack even went as far as saying that he witnessed several instances of domestic violence with his own eyes. The children were placed with Molly after Jason died, since the court granted her emergency custody. When Jason's sister heard the news that Jack and Molly alleged Jason was abusive, she suspected that Molly, or someone in Molly's family, had coached Jack and Sara on what answers to provide to the social workers regarding Jason and Molly's marriage. The court decided that Jack and Sara were to be removed from Molly's care and should go with Tracy. After the medical examiner autopsied Jason's body, it was released to his sister Tracy. Tracy then arranged for the body to be flown from the US to Ireland. This transportation was arranged through the Kevin Bell Repatriation Trust. The Kevin Bell Repatriation Trust is a charitable organization named after a man who passed away abroad under tragic circumstances. It was established to assist families and friends with financial assistance in repatriating the bodies of loved ones who passed away while abroad. This trust aims to alleviate some of the financial burden associated with such arrangements by offering financial aid. Tracy, Jack, and Sara returned to Limerick, Ireland, 2 weeks later. Molly, on the other hand, was devastated by the decision. Unable to function properly, Molly would desperately contact Jack and Sara, attempting to contact them through various means. She would frequently post messages on Facebook, reaching out to people she knew in Limerick, pleading with them to pass messages along to the children. According to Tracy, in the months following their return to Limerick, Molly would repeatedly call, constantly trying to reach Jack and Sara. Tracy didn't feel she was being cruel by keeping Molly from the children. She said Molly forfeited the right to see Jack and Sara when she killed their father. An autopsy determined that Jason had suffered over a dozen blows to the head, leading authorities to open a murder investigation. Despite the detective's initial assessment that Jason's death appeared to be in self-defense, the case took an unexpected turn 5 months after his death when Molly and Tom Martins were arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The arrest came as a relief to Jason's friends and family, who had been seeking justice. They believed that Molly had murdered Jason after discovering his intentions to leave her and take Jack and Sara back to Limerick. Jason's loved ones thought that Molly had been plotting to take his children away from him for a long time. During the investigation, detectives obtained recordings of arguments between Jason and Molly, which they believed to be an attempt to manipulate the situation in custody proceedings. It was suspected that Molly had intended to use the recordings against Jason. Jack and Sara settled well in Limerick with their Aunt Tracy and started to see a therapist. 9 months after Jack and Sara arrived in Ireland, Jack made a startling revelation. He recanted the initial statement that he had given to the social worker in the days after his father's death. This time, Jack claimed that Molly made up the stories that Jason was abusive. Jack alleged that Molly told him if he did not lie to the social workers, he and Sara would never see her again. His reason for coming forward was that he finally learned the truth about what happened to his father and sought justice. When Molly and Tom went on trial, the prosecution presented evidence gathered from the scene. During the trial of Molly and Tom, the prosecution presented evidence to determine that neither Molly nor Tom had sustained any injuries on the night of Jason's death. They argued that the lack of evidence of injuries on their bodies indicated they had not been involved in a physical struggle with a person of Jason's size. The prosecution argued that if there had been any such struggle, there would have been evidence of it on their bodies in the form of bruises and cuts. A blood spatter expert testified for the prosecution and bolstered their theory that Jason was attacked when he was defenseless by Molly and Tom. This expert showed evidence that Tom had been standing over Jason, swinging the baseball bat while Jason was no longer a threat. The expert's testimony supported the prosecution's theory that Tom had intentionally inflicted injuries on Jason. The prosecutor presented evidence indicating that Molly would have received Jason's $600,000 life insurance policy in the event of his death, which was used as a motive to support the accusation that she murdered him. When it came time for Molly and Tom to present their defense, they showed an image of Molly taken on the night Jason was killed. In this image, there was a noticeable red mark on Molly's neck. However, the prosecution presented an expert who testified that the redness on Molly's neck could be the result of rubbing and pulling on it. Several first responders had noticed Molly engaging in this behavior on the night of Jason's death. However, the defense presented their own expert witness, who argued that the red mark on Molly's neck could be evidence of strangulation. According to the expert, scratches behind Molly's ears, a complaint of trouble swallowing, and a sore throat were signs of strangulation. This expert also claimed that Molly urinated on herself as Jason choked her, stating that this is a common phenomenon that can occur if a person passes out from lack of oxygen. The defense called as a witness a nurse practitioner who had examined Jason 2 weeks before his death. This nurse practitioner testified that Jason had informed her that he often experienced sudden bursts of anger and felt stressed. According to the defense, the nurse practitioner's testimony showed that Jason had been experiencing volatile mood swings. During the trial, Tom took the witness stand in his defense and testified that he felt his life and Molly's were in danger on the night of Jason's death. As a result, he claimed that he did the best he could in order to defend himself. Tom told the jury that once he gained control of the bat back from Jason, he hit Jason until he deemed the threat to be over, which occurred when Jason fell to the floor. The prosecutor, seeking to make a significant impact during his closing arguments, decided to display the bat and paving stone that Molly and Tom had used to hit Jason in the head, resulting in his death. This demonstration aimed to bring the case to life for the jury, allowing them to physically witness the weapons used to commit the crime. After 9 days of testimony, the jury finally had the opportunity to deliberate. The jury only needed 3 hours to reach a verdict. They found Molly and Tom Martins guilty of Jason Corbett's murder. Ultimately, Molly and Tom were sentenced to serve 2 to 25 years to life in prison, reflecting the severity of their offense. As Molly was sentenced, she turned to face her mother and said, "I'm so sorry." Her voice was filled with regret and remorse. She continued, "I should have just let him kill me." Molly and Tom appealed their conviction. In 2020, an appeal court nullified the convictions and ordered a retrial, asserting that certain evidence excluded from their initial trial should have been presented to the jury. The decision to appeal was upheld in 2021 by the North Carolina Supreme Court. Following the appeal, Molly and Tom were released on bail pending a retrial. During the pretrial hearings, Molly and Tom's defense made serious allegations against Mags, Jason's first wife. They claimed that Mags did not die from an asthma attack, as previously thought, but instead tried to push the possibility that Mags was strangled. However, there was no evidence to support this claim. In fact, there has never been any evidence to suggest that Mags died from anything other than an asthma attack. Additionally, there has never been any evidence of foul play, and Jason has never been investigated. Eventually, Molly and Tom accepted a plea deal for charges of voluntary manslaughter in exchange for having the murder charges dropped. The judge sentenced them to a minimum of 51 months in prison, with credit for time served. Molly and Tom were released in June 2024, which upset Jason's family. The news that Molly and Tom were to be released brought back all the pain and anger they had experienced after Jason died. Jason's loved ones felt that the justice system had failed them. They questioned why Molly and Tom had been granted freedom when they committed such a heinous crime. Jack and Sara Corbett spoke at the sentencing hearing and described their stepmother Molly as a monster. They painted a picture of a woman who had not only neglected and abused them, but had also manipulated them into lying about their father. Sara, in particular, expressed deep resentment towards Molly for taking away her childhood and her relationship with her father. She accused Molly of exploiting their vulnerability and using them as pawns in her twisted game. In contrast to Sara's accusations, Molly expressed remorse for her actions. She stated that she regrets the events that led to Jason's death every day. Molly acknowledged the pain she had caused Jack and Sara and wished she could turn back the clock and make things right. However, Molly's remorse did little to absolve her in the eyes of her stepchildren. Jack and Sara continued to harbor anger toward her and accused her of betraying their family. Sara stated that she would never get back the father she lost, and Molly's regret would never fill the void left by his absence.